Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Speedify Live. I'm your host today. I'm Brian Prodoehl. I'm the CTO at Connectify, maker of Speedify. With me today is Will.
Hi.
All right. He's one of our developers here at Speedify. Again, we are live. If you have questions, go ahead, post them in the comments, and we will do our best to answer them as we go. Hey, Irvin. So where are you at? Where are you talking to us from today?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who's that? Speedify?
That is Speedify.
What's a Speedify BP?
What is a Speedify? So Speedify is it's an app that is, we use VPN technology, and we are really a VPN built from the ground up to deal with mobility issues. So combining multiple connections, trying to get the best latency, the best speed, best reliability, no matter where you are. And so we have it out on iOS, Google, Android, and Windows and Linux and Mac, so kind of everywhere.
Yeah. So I think you're working on some interesting new stuff in that department. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
So before the stream, BP had looking up congestion algorithms on his phone.
Yeah, I know. So
what a nerd.
I am a nerd. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, kind of a bummer. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with congestion delay and buffer bloat and all that stuff, but there we go. We got Hooch the fireman says, "Greetings, friends." Hey, Hooch. All right.
Consistent, ensuring audio is below par week in, week out.
We are doing our best. All right. We've got our mics on? I don't know. So what are we sounding like? Or is it low audio quality, volume? Where are we at? I guess
Speedify. Low quality audio, high quality product.
No, it's just this ongoing mic issues. I don't know what's up. So I don't know. Ryan or anybody, if there's anything we need to do for our audio, let me know.
Yeah.
And Nat, I guess let me know what you're hearing. I know like last week, I think our levels just seemed low, so I had to crank my volume up.
Yeah.
All right. So Studio says mics are on and they sound good.
Hey, Ryan.
Nat, do you agree? All right. Roy says audio sounds good. That's good enough for me.
No,
all right. So
driver is not that great though. Is that a real emoji? Face tortoise speaker shape.
All right. Irvin and Samantha both are saying we sound good. All right, let's forge ahead. So, yeah, kind of a bummer week. I guess yesterday there was news that Dave Tott, the singular force behind combating buffer bloat, died, which is a bummer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dave at all or any of his work, but I think everybody that's tuning in now is kind of enjoyed the fruits of his labor, I think. I think at a time when everybody was moving to faster internet connections, everybody was moving from dial-up to DSL and getting 3 megabit and 5 megabit and 10 megabit cable and stuff. There was a time where memory was getting cheaper and cheaper, and so people were just throwing more and more memory into their routers and at every path, and so got to a point where Dave Tott was frustrated because he was doing something and it took 10 seconds to load a web page, and he's like, what is going on? And so he sort of saw that as more traffic was going on, all the devices in between were buffering more and more. And so he coined the term buffer bloat about that, where if you are on a busy internet connection, you could get, instead of 30 milliseconds of latency, you get 5 seconds of latency. And so everything you do is that much slower.
Yeah. So theoretically, the internet is as fast as the speed of light. But practically, there's a bunch of crappy software in the way. It's entirely a software problem. It's just bad software.
Yeah, and sort of brought about by cheap memory. But so yeah, Dave Tott kind of started this bufferbloat.net and wrote some better algorithms for what to do when congestion is growing and there's more traffic there. He kind of came up with this congestion delay where you can kind of set a limit. So even if there's no matter how much traffic is going, delay shouldn't exceed more than this. And at that point, you start dropping packets and kind of speed everything up and improve the quality of experience. And so a lot of cool stuff. And so you kind of have things like BBR came out of that work, and the a lot of the fair queuing and active queue management and stuff that's really at kind of the backbone of the internet to make everything faster and more responsive. A lot of that came out of his work. So do we use any of that in Speedify?
We use something that's like Codel.
We do, yeah. This fair queuing, congestion delay, FQ coddle, we kind of have that built in Speedify.
So it turns out that these algorithms don't quite understand multiple internet connections quite as well as they need to. So we make a few adjustments,
All right, Benjamin had 2 megabits shared with 2 friends when he was 15, almost 30 years ago. Yeah, that was 2 megabits was pretty sweet. Finally at a point where you can download game demos and have them the same night. So, all right. So again, we are live. This is Speedify Live. We're here to answer any questions you have about Speedify.
You want to talk about why you're here?
Sure. VP? Yeah. How many steps back am I taking?
So, so Alex, who I think we all know, is at.
Oh, he's at the NAB show, the National Association of Broadcasters. So
showing off our Miris and whatnot.
Yep.
So our Miri are these like imagine it's like a router from the future in like it could survive an apocalypse. You might find it in like Terminator from the future kind of router. It's got like as many internet connections as you could possibly need. It's built super tough. You could throw it at someone and they'd get hurt and the router wouldn't. All kinds of cool stuff. Very nice thing. And he's showing it off at NAB.
Yeah. So kind of a neat show. Get a lot of big news organizations and stuff there, and a lot of people showing off cool network tech. So Alex will be there, and I think the whole Miri team I think are going to be there. So if you guys are in Vegas and want to go say hi to Alex in person, go to the NAB show. Look for the Miri booth.
Yep.
So there's miri.tech/NAB or on LinkedIn if you want to schedule a meeting or see exactly where they're going to be at.
Yeah.
All right, can I buy a Speedify server for my use and host it in my data room? Lots of requests for kind of self-hosted, stuff. I think it makes sense for a lot of people, and so that is something we are actively working on.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about Switchboard, where we came from?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so kind of at the beginning of this, we were more, kind of hub and spoke, where it was, you kind of downloaded both sides and you ran both sides yourself. It was very cool, but I think a lot of people wanted, servers nearby and didn't want to host them themselves. And so we kind of jumped all into the cloud service. But we have a bunch of bigger customers that are hosting servers themselves. We just haven't really made it easy for people just to, go to my.speedify.com and follow the directions there and activate your own server. We are just sort of working through the details there. So yeah, I would say coming soon for the self-hosted easy speed server. Yep, so here's the link. Schedule a meetup with Alex and the Miri team if you're going to the NAB show. April 5th through the 9th.
You ever been to Vegas?
I have. So been there a few times, and I was at CES once. And that is a crazy show.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody's ever been to CES, but...
Yeah, chat, have you been to Vegas? And I'm sorry, because I've never been, but I hear it's a terrible place. It doesn't feel... People are like, oh yeah, you should go to Vegas for like staying up until 5 in the morning. They're great at that. All the big lights and gambling. You can go gambling at 3 a.m.
So I am not a gambler, but I've had fun in Vegas every time I've gone. But yeah, the CES show is weird. Like you get off the plane and in the airport, there's like the check-in booths for CES. It's I've never seen anything like that. We would walk from our hotel at one side of CES to where our booth was, which is like a mile away. And you're like walking through convention floor stuff for CES like the whole way. It was, it's crazy.
I hear it's a beautiful landscape though. So
I think it depends.
Around it.
Depends what you're into.
Well.
All right. So we have a new video. We put out Between Two Palms discussion about internet protocols.
23 years in a row. Bob, fan of Patrice.
All right.
Who's Patrice?
I guess we'll find out, but
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I guess curious to hear what you're looking forward to seeing this year, or if you're showing anything off, Bob, but let us know. Yeah, I missed 1 year for COVID. I was surprised it was just 1 year. I mean, there were a lot of shows where it just seemed like had a tough time signing people up the next year, and it's like, we're going to have more of these shows, but kind of glad these shows are back to regular numbers. So yeah, Bob, let us know if you're showing anything fun off at NAB, or if you're just interested in seeing stuff. Certified Giga Chad tried Ethernet tethering from the Samsung S24 Ultra to a MacBook.
But it is organs and not usable.
Sure what you mean. Yeah, it's not usable. I'm missing something. So the Samsung S24, that just shows up as kind of normal USB Ethernet, I thought. I mean, so I'm curious, does it show up at all? Like, I'll have to hear from our folks with the S24 here, but I thought that just shows up and doesn't need any weird drivers or anything. So there is a checkbox in Mac where in the settings, I mean, if it's showing up as an Ethernet, but it's just not active, there's a checkbox in the network settings. And so we should have a help article on what to do to keep that active. But I think normally, like if you have Wi-Fi and you have Ethernet or this USB Ethernet, it'll just go away. So I'm guessing somebody in the chat might post in with the link on that. But yeah, I guess Certified Giga Chad, if you haven't looked at our support articles on how to tether Android, probably take a look there. All right, Bob is interested in stuff. He's a broadcaster. Awesome, very cool. Yeah, it's a neat show, especially, I mean, kind of nice having a whole big show that's catered towards your industry. So I'm guessing you'll see a bunch of cool stuff this year. All right. Yeah, latest discussion. We talked about internet protocols in space and what would work for internet on the moon. So kind of a recent thing where they were messing around on the moon. So check out the video if you haven't yet, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're interested in that sort of thing. All right. Shows up Ethernet, but it doesn't give internet, and USB tethering for Android on the Mac is not working. Oh, Benjamin is grumpy about our video and how we misunderstood TCP and UDP. Maybe, I don't know. I think we'll see. I know he understands TCP and UDP, but yeah, the whole interplanetary networking thing is kind of weird. I think just that distance and the propagation time is just too great for any normal protocol to really work. So I think that's kind of where they're separating things up and sort of sending updates a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think you can't have working TCP over like an 8-minute round trip time. So yeah, we'll see. All right. Yeah, so the checkbox I was talking about in the settings is this disable unless needed. So on the Mac, if it's showing up as Ethernet, and it's especially when it's showing up as like USB Ethernet, if you're in the settings app and you're on there, there's a checkbox to disable unless needed. So I guess one place to start might be to disable all of your other internet connections and just make sure that the tethered phone works. And even without Speedify, like, can you plug in your phone and does it get you on the internet? If it does, then you should be able to bring in other connections like your Wi-Fi and whatever else you have, and look for that disable unless needed checkbox in the settings, and you should be good to go. All right, so Benjamin thinks regular TCP over an 8-minute round trip time would work. I mean, it could. I don't know. It would take a half hour to get a TLS handshake going. I mean, I don't know. I guess we probably have different concepts of what working would be, but yeah, I think regular TCP to Mars, I think, would not be great. All right. Yeah, I think that video has gotten a lot of grumpy comments from people in particular. So I don't know. It's kind of fun to think about that stuff. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we'll see any useful applications in our lifetime of it, but certainly a fun problem to solve is how do you get space travelers connected? Certainly seems like something we have all the pieces and the understanding of how to kind of solve that as best we can. So it's a fun one to think about. All right. Do we have any releases coming up this week, Will?
Most likely, yeah.
What are we heading towards? What are we doing?
Some interesting stuff. We got some Starlink stuff. We got some Starlink UI stuff. Yeah, so you'll be better able to see if your internet is a little bit weird. You know, your dish might be in a bad spot, might be way out of alignment. You might be covering it with another Starlink dish, like we did for testing this. You might, I don't know, get oddly obstructed, and you'll see those little things in the UI so that when you see them, you can fix it. Yeah.
All right. Any fun movements with our dishes? Are they back on the roof?
They're back on the roof, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the Starlink dish, you can talk to it over gRPC, and so you can ask it things like, "How's it going? Any problems with what you're seeing? How's your connection looking?" And we can actually get events back from the Starlink dish of things like, "Hey, your dish is obstructed." And so I think yesterday Will was messing with our dishes, trying to get these events to make sure they actually work and show up, and everything looks good.
Yeah.
So
now obstruction is a weird one because we have not been able to reliably see that the Starlink gets obstructed in a predictable way. I've laid on top of it. I've put another Starlink on top of it. I've turned it upside down and left it there overnight. And it's like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm not obstructed. But here's this weird thing. I can't talk to anything. And the ping latency is out of control, but I'm fine.
Yeah, it's
yeah, so it's very hit and miss with that one.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So Alan Moss says our article mentions HoRNDIS, but it says assuming it installs without errors. So yeah, I mean this HoRNDIS is this remote networking thing. It's like a USB Ethernet protocol thing in Windows. And so the folks that wanted to port it to the Mac, because there were a bunch of devices that needed this HoRNDIS driver, he decided to name his project HoRNDIS, and it's kind of spelled HoRNDIS, but he says it's pronounced HoRNDIS because he hates NDIS and RNDIS and the whole stack. But it's a bit of a mess. I think if you have older Android devices, you may need this HoRNDIS thing on Mac. But a lot of the newer stuff, I think, just shows up as Ethernet devices on Mac, right? I think they got the tethering stuff on most new, I think the Samsungs and all that stuff as of the last few years, I think, show up as just USB Ethernet devices. And so we shouldn't need weird RNDIS drivers and things.
So I know that Alex had some thoughts about how to tether his Android devices with his Mac. I know he had some foot guns over there, but I forget what they were. But he did reliably get various Android devices to work. He tests that pretty often. So it should be possible.
Yeah, should be. All right. Bob is asking, if I purchase a dedicated server, can I use it with multiple clients? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I mean, I think especially when you have a team, you can add people to your team, or if you have a family, you can add five other users to your family, and each of those can use 5 devices. You can get, yeah, I mean, I think if you're in kind of a business situation and you want to kind of, let other people use your stuff, I think setting up a team and having a dedicated server makes a ton of sense. Bowls Promo TV has the Director Mini. What's our relationship with Magewell? So, yeah, the Director Mini is kind of a neat kind of little video encoder with a screen on it, and it has Speedify baked in. Very cool little device. So the Miri X510 router that we were talking about earlier is made by Magewell, and so we kind of have a relationship with Magewell through Miri, but very cool maker of video tech like that. All right. So Alan's going to connect the non-Apple to GLINet to use pair and share. That's one way to go too. I mean, I think depending on what device you have, I mean, if it just can't tether with Mac, connecting it to a little Linux box or something like that is certainly a way to go. And pair and share is a very cool way to share cellular from other devices.
Yep.
All right, Alex used Ethernet tethering and Ethernet to USB adapter to get the Android tethered to the Mac.
Seems like something he'd do.
That sounds right.
So speaking of parent share, we got this, or Apple got this nasty letter from the EU saying you can't do your auto stuff anymore. But the story is a little bit unclear, as BP tells it, about why Apple was messing around with auto anyway. The story, as I understand it, is Apple developed this protocol called Auto, which was meant to AWDL, which was meant to help, make this device that sort of kind of looked like you were doing finding peers and connecting to them, a little bit like IoT stuff, a little bit like MDNS, but without needing to be on the same network. And they gave it to they put up an RFC for it, and people just kept making changes until it was unusable. And then at some point, Android came along and they implemented some draft of this, which was completely incompatible with Apple's. And so Apple's like, what the hell? Why did you do that? Now we have something that doesn't work with anyone else's, and we can't change it because we've got all this stuff based on it. Yeah. Now the EU comes around and they're like, well, you can't have that incompatible.
Yeah.
But they're like, you got to use this other thing. It's different from whatever you guys are talking about. It's a little bit like, I think, this is my vibe, web frameworks. I think this has some real web framework vibes to it, honestly.
Could be. I don't know. I mean, so yeah, 802.11, I mean, I think close to the original spec, they had all the different modes in there. So they had station mode, essentially like the client mode and the access point mode. And they had IBSS, with the kind of ad hoc 802.11 mode where without an access point, you can have a bunch of devices up and they can kind of be in this mode where they can all just talk direct to each other without going through kind of a central access point. There were a lot of issues with that IBSS mode, and you'd have kind of, they would split, and there really wasn't anything for them to rejoin, and it was messy. So that original ad hoc mode was weird and not something that would be easy for somebody like Apple or Google to kind of integrate with all their devices and have it just this sort of seamless experience that Apple would want with AirDrop or something like that. So they came up with their spec of how they would use 802.11 and other technologies to, as most things with Apple are, I think, use multicast, use Bonjour to have devices find each other and sort of have it just work for AirDrop. And so before anything else like that was really out there, they came up with that. And my understanding is that they tried to get that to be the standard, and it just wasn't picked up. And so you had Wi-Fi Direct, you'd have Windows and Android kind of supporting Wi-Fi Direct to different degrees and not supporting what Apple was using at all. And now it seems like, there's a new standard that hasn't really taken off. And it's, a few years ago, people were declaring it dead, this NAN. And it sounds like the European Commission wants Apple to add this new kind of Wi-Fi Direct. Well, it's not new, but they want them to support this other Wi-Fi Direct sort of thing on their devices like this year, which seems impossible to me. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
It is. I mean, it would be really nice if that kind of underlying tech behind AirDrop would work across all Android devices and Windows and, people's smart TV sticks and all that stuff. It would be really nice if that could all just use the same technology. That would be awesome. But I guess we'll see. I'm guessing the timeline that was pushed on Apple for that seems too aggressive for me. Benjamin says Android didn't come along. Apple made their standards later on. I mean, look up when AirDrop came out, though. AirDrop came out a long time ago. So yeah, I think that technology, I think, was out before Wi-Fi Direct. All right. So Alan says, if I connect the USB-C to the S24, the option for Ethernet is grayed out. This is the option in the Mac OS settings? I guess which?
Or Speedify settings? I'm
Yeah,
confused.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh, do you mean in the S24 settings? I'm not sure. All right. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? So yeah, check. I think we're going to be coming out with a new release this week. Should fix a bunch of bugs and add some very cool Starlink features. And if you haven't checked out the Miri router yet, go ahead and check out Miri.tech. Take a look. It's a very cool device. It's got a bunch of Ethernet, 4G, 5G, and it can run off of 2 batteries. So you can actually just kind of run it forever by swapping out one battery and charging it up and putting it back in and swapping out the other one. So if you're on the go, it's a very, very cool device. And it's got Speedify under the hood. All right, Alan Wass says, on the S24 settings, Ethernet gets grayed out. I'm not sure what that would be. Is that on the tethering settings? I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to, I know that S24 is a very cool device. I know it comes up from time to time. So we'll have to see. Maybe we just need to update our Linux user since 2003. Yeah, that's...
First of all, good on you. Okay, that's very good. We appreciate that.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's the Linux wireless stack and mesh stack and that stuff has been very cool, and it's a very fun place to play around with the new 802.11 specs kind of before they're out on a lot of commercial devices. So definitely a very fun place to hack on networking stuff for sure. All right. So on the S24 tethering settings, when he plugs in USB-C, the Ethernet goes away. How do we spell the name of the router? It's M-I-R-I. Yes.
Yeah.
Miri. Miri.tech is the website for the Miri X510.
Not to be confused with Cargo Miri. Completely different thing.
All right. Okay. I think questions are sort of winding down. Any parting words of wisdom, Will? Any last questions we got?
Alan Waugh, for the tethering thing, if you don't figure it out soon, shoot us an email at support, and we'll poke Alex and see what Alex thinks about that. For sure, I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on that. We'll also look around the office for anyone with a Samsung S24 if we got one, and try to check it out. Good luck on that.
All right. Okay. I guess I think that's about it. Questions are winding down. Thanks everybody for hopping over. We will see you next week.